Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Katrina Blowers.
Good afternoon. Our top stories on 7. Heartbreak and frustration. Calls for an investigation as flood-struck residents count the costs on Brisbane's north side. Families evacuated, dozens trapped, including children, as flooding slams the Western Downs. Also, inflation plunges, what it means for mortgages and other interest rate hikes. And breakthrough research, the childhood cancer vaccine being developed by Brisbane scientists. Good afternoon. Frustrated victims of yesterday's mammoth flood are calling for an investigation into why so many were struck without more warning. Residents are being told the clean-up could take months. Garth Burley has the latest.
Good afternoon. Residents here in Bray Park are continuing that almighty clean-up days after severe storms smashed this region. People have been using brooms and gurneys to clear out the mud and are emptying their flooded homes. The Prime Minister has also visited the area, meeting with SES volunteers and a Good Samaritan who rescued a cow from floodwaters. Disaster relief payments have also been opened up to people in this area who have never experienced a storm this severe.
It's terrible, but there's honestly nothing I can do about it. There's just one of those things that happen.
Why is there not an engineer or someone questioning? This is not just an act of God. This is not just a rain event.
There needs to be an inquiry of some sort into it to find out why, again, it's happened.
In positive news, the rain has eased up here, but some people are holding off on the clean-up to wait for insurance assessors. Dump trucks have just started arriving here on the scene in Bray Park to remove all the flood-ravaged items from the street, but for residents, the recovery is far from over.
Overnight, the flooding emergency moved inland, sparking evacuations in the Western Downs. While the floodwaters have mostly receded, some communities remain cut off, as Steve Hart reports.
Yes, well, even though the sun is shining and the rain has stopped, all focus now is on this behind me, the Chinchilla Weir. Of course, that flows on down to Condamine and other low-lying areas. That is the main concern. Those waters will be rising and those townships are of concern. Just like we saw in Warra last night, where a number of rescues had to be made and also a number of evacuations. In fact, 27 people from 7 families had to be evacuated. An elderly couple had to be rescued from floodwaters.
Engaged some swiftwater crews to go out there. And during that time, it noticed that the river rises in that Kooyang Creek area where Wallace sits was rising quite significantly. So we started at roughly 4 p.m. and didn't finish till midnight.
All of this water, of course, has to go somewhere, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. Many areas, the water has receded, the clean-up continues, but the flood threat is still there. Major flood warnings for Condamine River and Moonee River further south. Locals out here in the Western Downs continue to prepare the best they can. They're not too concerned. They've been through all this before. It's all about doing their best to be ready.
Now to Tony Auden. And Tony, that rain has cleared. The big question, how long is it going to stay dry?
Good afternoon, Katrina. Well, some good news. We're looking at one of our longest runs of dry weather in the last few months. No significant rain on the forecast for at least the next week, maybe just a couple of passing showers into the middle parts of next week. I'm at Scarborough at the moment. Of course, we have plenty of that beautiful blue sky, which is a nice change, but a couple of other things you might notice. The water behind me here is very brown and murky. That's all the flood water coming out of those rivers further south and sweeping up past the Redcliffe Peninsula. The other thing, it's been very windy. We've seen gusts over 70 k's an hour for parts of the southeast coast today. That wind is all thanks to a low pressure system spinning up off our coast. It's expected to push out into the Coral Sea and hover there for potentially the next week. There is a chance it could become a tropical cyclone at some stage, so we just need to keep an eye on it for now. Now heading out west, where ex-cyclone Kirrily continues to dump heavy rain out in the western parts of the state. It's looking very impressive on the radar too. A severe weather warning remains current for heavy rain from Mount Isa up towards the Gulf. Still a bit happening. Katrina, I'll be back soon with the forecast.
Thank you, Tony. See you then. A Windsor family has taken matters into their own hands after their luxury cars were stolen overnight. They used tracking devices to guide police to where they'd been dumped. Jordan Bissell has more.
The Windsor family awoke early this morning to see their beloved Range Rover and Chevy being driven down their driveway, but it was thanks to a pair of $50 Apple AirTags that they were able to track the cars down. Virginia's teenage daughter raised the alarm.
My daughter then came running upstairs. She was asleep and she heard some rustling outside her window, and then she looked out and there was a gap, and so she saw some feet and some legs and some shirts, and they had put a chair up on the pool shed and they were climbing into the laundry window. So she rang 000 from under the covers.
AirTags, tracking devices left in the cars showed the Range Rover was dumped just a few streets away next to the Kedron Brook. The other was in Logan. The family handed the locations over to police, who have combed the cars for clues. The group had been caught on camera nearby trying to break into another house, even attempting unsuccessfully to cover their tracks, trying in vain to obscure the security camera after it had filmed them. They left empty-handed in a black ute before they made their way to the booths. Shocked neighbours say they've been targeted multiple times by car thieves. We'll speak to them in 7 News tonight at 6 o'clock.
There's hope on the horizon for mortgage holders, with quarterly inflation figures falling to a 2-year low. Our political reporter Isabel Mullen has more.
Well, it's a good indication the Reserve Bank will keep rates on hold when the board meets next week. Quarterly inflation for December falling to 4.1%, down from 5.4% in the September quarter. It's an even better result than economists were expecting. They believe goods inflation will continue to fall, but they're still closely watching services inflation, that's things like hospitality and culture, before making a decision on interest rates. The Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, spoke earlier this morning.
We need it to moderate further and faster. We know it's not mission accomplished on inflation because people are still under the pump, and that is precisely why we are delivering bigger tax cuts for more people to help them deal with these persistent and sustained cost of living pressures.
The Reserve Bank Board will gather next Tuesday for its first 2-day meeting. We should get a decision on the cash rate after. The majority of economists are predicting rate cuts later in the year.
A man has been charged with the murder of a young Queensland mother, and a warning for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers. This story contains images of a person believed to be deceased. Alissa Bernard vanished after a night out at a far north pub more than a decade ago. Officers say the 62-year-old man was spotted with Ms Bernard the night she disappeared.
We are still chasing more. This isn't the end of this matter. There's a long road to go through the prosecution process.
Large-scale searches have been carried out around Cohen, but her body has never been found. A $500,000 reward for further information is still being offered by police. Former Pakistan Prime Minister and cricket star Imran Khan has been sentenced to 10 years jail for leaking state secrets. As Europe correspondent Ashley Mullaney reports, the trial has been labelled a sham.
Well, this is yet another blow for Imran Khan. The cricketer turned politician is already serving 3 years behind bars for a dubious corruption charge. Now he's been hit with another 10-year prison sentence for releasing details of a diplomatic cable at a political rally 2 years ago. This latest ruling comes ahead of next week's parliamentary elections in Pakistan. Both Khan and his team say this has been an attempt, a rather successful one, to sideline him, likening this to a fixed cricket match.
The legally appointed legal team of Mr. Imran Khan were ousted from the proceedings, were thrown literally out of the court, and they were not given the right to cross-examine and to defend their clients.
Even from behind bars, Khan remains a political force in Pakistan. His supporters at recent rallies have faced the wrath of the state. Today, more violence, a roadside bomb going off amongst his supporters, killing 4 people. Khan and his team saying he has not had a fair day in court.
The woman who was mauled by a shark in Sydney Harbour has given her first statement since the attack. Lauren O'Neill is expected to make a full recovery after a long, complicated surgery. Paul Caddack reports.
Good afternoon. It is good news from here at St Vincent's Hospital. 29-year-old Lauren O'Neill appears to be doing well after the Monday night shark attack and is on her way to a full recovery. After losing a lot of blood and needing a marathon surgery to save her leg, she's already been moved from intensive care to a regular ward to continue her recovery. Lauren and her family making a statement through a hospital spokesperson this afternoon.
She wishes to thank her heroic and very kind neighbours for the critical assistance they provided her. Lauren is also immensely grateful to the New South Wales ambulance paramedics and King's Cross Police for their swift and caring actions at the scene. She would also like to thank all the clinicians at St Vincent's Hospital, particularly the specialist surgical teams who worked through the night. Her likely full recovery is testament to their extraordinary skills.
Lauren O'Neill was taking a quick dip in the harbour near where she lived in Elizabeth Bay. It wasn't an area protected by a shark net. The Premier says there's not a plan to net the whole harbour. Experts urging people to swim in protected areas, to not swim at night or at dawn, at dusk, and also avoid swimming after heavy rain, which can concentrate the fish that the sharks are looking for.
A groundbreaking childhood cancer vaccine developed in our backyard. Coming up, the breakthrough Queensland study giving hope to thousands of families. A fresh push to curb cost of living pain on the Gold Coast. And new scams targeting customers of a popular travel website. What to look out for.
In 7 News, children evacuated in another flood emergency as the Northside cleanup begins. And help for Reggie, the tradie who lost all his tools. Plus, how our extreme weather will affect your insurance. Also, the young Queenslander who saved her guinea pig from a snake. 7 News at 6.
A free skin check using just your phone. The simple health tool in the palm of your hand, and it could save your life. Plus, how this Aussie real estate agent lost 32 kilograms. The secret to her incredible transformation. Start with Sunrise, tomorrow morning on 7 and 7 Plus.
To breaking news now, and a plane has crashed near Hervey Bay shortly after making a Mayday call. It's believed the Cessna went down at Dundawaran Beach. One person was on board the plane at the time. The crash is believed to have sparked a fire near Bushland. The pilot has now been found by emergency services and is in a stable condition with a head laceration. We'll bring you more updates on this breaking story as they come to hand. The country's consumer rights watchdog has seen a sharp rise in scam reports involving travel provider Booking.com. It's been revealed Australians lost more than $337,000 through the website last year. It's understood the scam is still active, with customers warned to contact properties by phone and remain cautious of links and messages and emails. Two of the state's biggest support organisations have joined forces calling for more government action to solve the cost of living crisis. Liam Bland joins us now live. And Liam, they claim children are living rough in areas like the Gold Coast.
Katrina, the Queensland Council of Social Service says 1 in 9 young people living on the Gold Coast are living in poverty. It's a staggering figure, prompting QCOS and Act for Kids to demand action from both Labor and the LNP ahead of October's state election. The Make Queensland Fair campaign is calling on the next Queensland government to commit more funding for cost of living relief, family support services, community groups and housing affordability.
We are setting our state up for a generation of children who have grown up in poverty.
Imagine what it's like to get the kids up to go to school in clean uniforms and feed them breakfast if you're living in a car or a tent and you're frightened for your life.
There are also calls for a 10-year housing plan to be established to ensure every Queenslander has a roof over their heads. Katrina.
Thank you, Liam. Well, civil unrest in Sri Lanka has escalated as police take to the streets with tear gas and water cannons. Their efforts to calm protesters follow outrage over a steep tax increase and ongoing economic crisis. Australia signed a 10-year agreement with Sri Lanka this week, committing an initial $30 million over 5 years towards improved governance in the nation. Coming up, Queensland scientists behind a vaccine breakthrough, how it could be used to treat childhood brain cancer. And in sport, not again. Another painful end to Broncos training a fortnight from their first game.
On 7 News, getting children back to school and off their devices.
As a parent, we've all experienced that battleground.
How parents can break the holiday habits.
It can be difficult if we just say to them, that's finished now.
The new solutions helping families reduce screen time peacefully. On 7 News, Queensland's #1.
Queensland researchers are working on a world-first vaccine to fight against brain tumours in children. Experts from immunology and brain tumour biology have joined together for the project. Joining me now is Professor Brandon Wainwright from the Children's Brain Cancer Centre at the University of Queensland. Professor, good afternoon to you. So how would this vaccine work and what would its impacts be?
Well, thanks, Katrina. Brain cancer kills more children in Australia than any other disease. Since the therapy was developed around about 30 years ago involving surgery, radiation and chemotherapy, we haven't really made any impact in the disease. So the impact of a successful vaccine trial would be enormous.
So this sort of technology has revolutionised treatment for other cancers. We've heard of it being used in adults, for example. So do paediatrics pose a different challenge?
They do pose a different challenge. The tumours themselves are very good at hiding from the immune system. They're a bit quieter, and so they're harder to detect by the immune system. And also they sit behind a thing called the blood-brain barrier, so getting new therapeutics through that barrier and into the brain is also a challenge.
Whenever we report on these breakthroughs, everybody wants to know how far along is the process and when do you hope a vaccine could be available?
Sure. Well, this is the launch. We've been planning this for 2 years. We've had support from the Children's Hospital Foundation here in Queensland, and we now have additional support as well from the Robert Collidor's Foundation. So today is day one of this project. What we're aiming to do is to do the laboratory research and the clinical trial planning at the same time so we can be as fast as possible. And our aim in a clinical setting is to have our approval through ethics and the design done by the end of this year so that we'll be in a position sometime in 2025 to begin enrolling patients in what's called a phase 1 study, which is a safety study, which is an important first step.
Well, this could make an enormous difference in so many lives, and I look forward to reporting on the updates in the future. Professor Wainwright, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Cheers.
Let's have a quick look at today's sport now. Good afternoon, Alissa.
Good afternoon to you, Katrina. Hello, everyone. Steve Smith has teased critics of his move up the Test batting order, pointing out he now averages 60 as an opener. It comes ahead of a one-day series cameo as captain against the Windies. There are so many new faces, including the Heat's Xavier Bartlett. He can't guess an 11 for Friday's clash in Melbourne before being asked if 50-over internationals will still exist in 15 years.
I've no idea. I certainly won't be. I think it is a format that I'd like to see continue. Yeah.
Queenslander Beth Mooney led the Aussie women to a tense 5-wicket victory in last night's T20 decider against South Africa in Hobart. Set 163, Mooney shrugged off a bout of food poisoning to anchor the chase 82 from 55 balls. They lead the multi-format series 4 points to 2. One-dayers begin Saturday in Adelaide. Good enough for green and gold, but snubbed by the Blues. Kotoni Staggs insists he can improve on a career-best season and force his way back into the Origin arena. Those hopes have been boosted by the appointment of Michael Maguire and the clean slate that comes with a new coach.
He probably has different plans to the last coach, but it doesn't matter what coach it is. I think my footy will just put me in that talking point.
At the pointy end of pre-season, a back row blow. Dragons recruit Jaden Hunt carried off the field and sent for scans on an ankle injury. He turns 35 in a fortnight, but former Lion King Dane Zorko refuses to say this year will be his last in the AFL. Nearing the end of his 13th pre-season, Brisbane's 4-time club champion's been fine-tuning his body off-field with revolutionary needlework, revitalising his hunt for an elusive premiership.
I will not be putting a limit as to how long I play on. I feel great, body's feeling great, so we'll just take it as it comes. But yeah, how old's LeBron? 40 odd? Yeah, we'll just keep going, eh?
And in the news at 6, Zorko reveals the biggest lesson learnt from last year's grand final. I can't wait to hear from him, Katrina. That's sport.
Great stuff. Thank you, Alissa. Well, time to see what's coming up in 7 News at 6 and our Gold Coast Bulletin. Max and Amanda are here. Good afternoon to you both. Max, we'll begin with you. So residents in the southeast are, of course, facing a mammoth clean-up effort following yesterday's flood emergency.
They are, Katrina, with calls for an urgent investigation into why some suburbs weren't given more warning. Tonight, the full scale of the disaster becomes more clear as dozens of residents are evacuated west of Brisbane. Also, an insurance headache on the way. What will this emergency do to our premiums? And we bring you new strategies for parents helping to wean children off electronic devices. Good luck.
Well, you hide them in the vegetable drawer. They never look there. All right, Amanda, we'll come to you now. We have exclusive details about accused teen car thieves at the centre of a police manhunt.
Yes, the youngest is just 12 years old, Katrina. In the news at 5:30, his shocking criminal history exposed, plus what he's been charged with now. And don't miss the rest of our exclusive sit-down interview with Mayor Tom Tate as he reveals his big ideas to revolutionise parts of the Gold Coast ahead of the next election.
Thanks, Amanda, and thank you, Max. Our Gold Coast viewers are off to the chase now, and then you can join Amanda for your local news at 5:30 and, of course, Sharon and Max at 6 o'clock. For the rest of Queensland, flood victims begin picking up the pieces, the mammoth task ahead as the recovery begins. Biden's retaliation, how the US plans to hit back in the Middle East following a deadly drone strike. And later, after the weather, why scientists want to resurrect the Tasmanian tiger.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Katrina Blowers.
Thanks for joining us. Making headlines this Wednesday, residents in Brisbane have begun cleaning up after flash flooding swept through suburbs in the city's north. The Prime Minister and Premier have announced financial support for those hardest hit, including residents in Bray Park. We'll have more on this story shortly. A pilot has survived a plane crash at Hervey Bay. A mayday call was made shortly before the crash. Fire crews are on scene with reports of a blaze being sparked due to the incident. And new inflation data has revealed price rises have slowed to a 2-year low. Economists expect the trend could mean the Reserve Bank will keep interest rates on hold when it meets next week.
Thanks.
To more now on the flood cleanup, and residents on Brisbane's north side are assessing the damage after yesterday's sudden flash flooding. Communities are being warned the cleanup effort could take months. Joel Dry has the latest.
Well, this is the last of the flood water that has been left over from the deluge that occurred yesterday and yesterday evening. This is a property in Beachmere. It belongs to Colin, and he and his partner are still very much stuck, completely surrounded by water. Their property is wedged between the Caboolture River and the King John's Creek behind them, so this water really has nowhere to go. He says he's prepared to be stuck here for a while.
We're used to being resilient, so just, one step at a time and just day after day, I guess.
The Beachmere area yesterday, the water came up so quickly, it caught a lot of homeowners by surprise. They are near a river, so they are mostly built up quite high, but some properties still have lower levels that they have been living in, so today, for them, it has been a clean-up.
Well, it's happened before, so it was kind of expected, but I think this time we didn't expect it to be as bad as it was. I was working from home and I was watching the water come from over there, and it was just slowly creeping up until Mum was like, okay, put everything up, and you just don't expect it, and then you get to today and it's, well, you got to fix everything again.
A lot of memories that I'm never going to get back. Well, I got memories, but not physical memories.
Just down the road at the Sanford Bowls Club, they are dealing with their second flood in as many years. They are used to it, but say it doesn't get any easier. Thankfully, the sun has come out. They had a big volunteer army there, so they are getting stuck in.
The Prime Minister and Premier have met with emergency services in flood-affected parts of Brisbane's north. The meeting follows calls from residents of Bray Park for an urgent investigation into why floodwaters rose so suddenly, trapping some inside their homes. Here's some of what they had to say at a press conference this morning.
We have SES and QFES on the ground right now in Bray Park looking at the damage assessments and they will look into whether there were other factors that could have been addressed that would have reduced the amount of flooding. So Council have advised us that there are 399 homes in Bray Park that they think have been affected by this flooding. Now that could be anything from relatively minor inundation of their backyard all the way through to significant damage, and so that's what those damage assessments are designed to find out. We've only completed I think about 29 of those damage assessments.
In terms of Bray Park, as the Premier has mentioned, we've obviously activated financial assistance to assist people in Bray Park today, and that will no doubt extend to other areas in the next day or two.
We thank again all those extraordinary emergency service workers, SES members who this morning, again just up the road here at Marumba Downs, we had the opportunity to thank personally the people who have been out there, some of whom had been up to Townsville over the weekend helping their fellow Queenslanders and were back here helping their neighbours.
Thousands of North Queensland residents have lost power again after a wave of storms hit Townsville and Charters Towers. Around 100,000 lightning strikes battered the region, cutting power to almost 9,000 residents in heatwave conditions. Ergon says 311 properties are still without power due to ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily. US President Joe Biden says he has decided on how America will respond to the drone attack in Jordan, which killed 3 of its soldiers. US correspondent Tim Lester is in Washington.
President Biden's dilemma: how to rein in Iran but not stir a wider Middle East conflict. As the president left here today for some fundraising events in Florida, he gave some clues.
I don't think we need a wider war in the Middle East. That's not what I'm looking for.
The president says he's settled on a response to the deadly drone strike on a US military base in Jordan. 3 soldiers killed, the first Americans to die in more than 160 strikes by Iranian-backed militia since last October. Even some of Joe Biden's allies are suggesting it's time Iran itself paid a price.
But right now, they're getting all the benefit and no cost. They are attacking U.S. forces. They are, supporting Hezbollah, supporting Hamas with no cost. We have to get them to change that calculation.
The president is not saying what he and his team have planned, but does acknowledge Iran's role.
I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons to the people who did it.
This as Israeli special forces show how far they'll go to hunt down an enemy. This security footage as a dozen soldiers dressed as medical staff and civilian women infiltrate a West Bank hospital and shoot dead 3 Palestinian fighters receiving treatment there. On Iran, President Biden's comments suggest he's not likely to order any direct strike within Iranian borders.
Time for a check on finance now and a record-breaking day for the share market. Here's Laura Bezzarati from CommSec.
Good afternoon. Today certainly was one for the record books. The Aussie market managed to break through its old record, hitting a fresh high today and ending up by 1.1% to have our best day in over a month in the process. The Aussie market has also been climbing for the past 8 sessions in a row, which is the longest winning streak since March last year. All of this comes on the heels of a softer than expected inflation report, showing that inflation is easing and more quickly than forecasted, which has investors hoping that the Reserve Bank could cut interest rates for the first time in August after what has been quite a long period of hiking. The RBA will actually be meeting next week, where they'll more than likely keep rates on hold, especially after today's inflation numbers and the big drop in consumer spending that we saw during December. And of course, all eyes will be on what they say about interest rate cuts, because as of right now, we haven't actually heard from the RBA talking about rate cuts just yet. In terms of sector performance today, we saw all of the the 11 improving. The financial sector was a huge support, with all major banks pushing higher, while most of the other sectors rose in the order of between 1 and 2%. Finally, the Aussie dollar has firmed to buy 66.1 US cents. Have a lovely night.
A group of volunteer lifeguards has saved 4 swimmers from potentially drowning at Bondi Beach. As Bill Hogan reports, it happened just as the surf club had finished training.
Well, a routine training operation turned into a real-life rescue for surf lifesavers in Bondi Beach last night. 4 people caught in an infamous rip on the southern end around 7:45, forcing young volunteers into their very first major rescue. The lifesavers didn't hesitate though, pulling in 2 men from the water as they struggled to swim. 2 others were also brought to the shore. The 2 men were treated by paramedics who arrived a short time later. One was taken to St Vincent's Hospital, the other to Prince of Wales in a serious but stable condition. The beach was unpatrolled last night. If it weren't for volunteers undertaking lifeboat racing, it would have been a different story.
There would have been lives lost last night. We were very lucky that they had 20 lifesavers, volunteer lifesavers on duty, doing some rescue training.
Jade Melvey was among those thrown in the deep end last night. She comforted family as they watched on in distress.
It's just making sure that obviously the patients get the right care that they need, but also that their family and their friends who are with them aren't stressed themselves.
The group were from overseas. The message to international travellers and all other swimmers to not enter unpatrolled waters and to always swim between the flags.
Vaping habits on the rise. Coming up, how many more Queenslanders have taken up the habit? And why a 12-year-old girl picked a stash with a snake in her own backyard.
On 7 News, getting children back to school and off their devices.
As a parent, we've all experienced that battleground.
How parents can break the holiday habits.
It can be difficult if we just say when that's finished now.
The new solutions helping families reduce screen time peacefully. On 7 News, Queensland's #1.
New figures are revealing the shocking rise of vaping in Australia. Thousands of people are taking up the habit every month. As Chris Marr reports, the government is cracking down on the sale of e-cigarettes.
There have been calls today for the federal government to take a different approach to vaping in the community, with new figures showing an alarming increase in the practice. Now, this week, a new campaign was launched highlighting the health dangers from vaping as government, state and federal grapple with its impact, particularly on young people.
And I'm coughing black stuff into a tissue.
You know, new figures demonstrate the size of the challenge. Polling requested by the Convenience Stores Association, it shows 90,000 Australians took up vaping in the last 3 months. More than 1.72 million people aged over 18 use e-cigarettes. That's up nearly a third in the last 12 months. It has convenience store operators calling for vaping to be regulated in the same way as tobacco, limiting the impact of the black market.
The only way that we can address this black market is to starve it of its demand. And the only way you can do that is to make these products regulated and available through licensed retailers.
But doctors say the vaping numbers are concerning and the only way to go is to limit their availability.
No amount of regulation stops that. It must be enforcement to actually ensure that these vapes, which are illegal as of January 1 for everyone, are actually taken off the streets and out of stockpiles.
In March, new federal government legislation takes effect, further limiting vaping, affecting their packaging and flavouring.
Concert goers have been left frustrated following reports of fights and a stampede in the crowd at former One Direction singer Louis Tomlinson's show at River Stage yesterday. Some ticket holders were mistakenly given priority wristbands for entry by organisers, following confusion at the gates. The move sparked arguments between fans and violence as crowds ran to a second entry point opened later in the day. City Council says it will have discussions with promoters to make sure future events are safely managed. The niece of a popular breakfast radio show host has had a rattling encounter with a snake in her Bondi backyard. The snake was hiding in bushes where it was trying to eat the family guinea pig named Maxibon. 12-year-old Rosie Whiteman, who's the niece of Kiss 97.3's Kip Whiteman, launched into action. She grabbed the snake before swinging it around. Maxibon was eventually freed, Rosie's hero act saving the beloved family pet. You're watching 7's Afternoon News. Still to come, how Aussie scientists believe they could resurrect the Tasmanian tiger. And some sunshine has returned to the southeast today. This is a look at Brisbane right now. It is currently 29 degrees and Tony has all the weather details next.
In 7 News, children evacuated in another flood emergency as the Northside cleanup begins. And help for Reggie, the tradie who lost all his tools. Plus, how our extreme weather will affect your insurance. Also, the young Queenslander who saved her guinea pig from a snake. 7 News at 6.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're watching 7 News. Checking the weather now from Scarborough, where we've had a bit more blue sky return to the southeast today. It's been a nice change for all those flood-affected people. A good chance to start cleaning up and those water levels to subside. Jumping to the maps, and not much rain across the region today. Maybe just a very light shower on the Sunshine Coast this morning. It's been pretty breezy along the coastal stretch too. A slightly cooler night, but still warm and muggy today. 24 to 29 degrees around the Redcliffe Peninsula here. Onto the satellite. The reason we've dried up, a low is spinning up off the southern Queensland coast. It's dragging the rain out with it, but also pushing in these stronger winds. Ex-cyclone Kirrily is still over Western Queensland and still bringing heavy rain. That won't change tomorrow. More heavy rain in the northwest, linking up with storms over the tropics, while the Coral Sea Low moves further away, so winds ease slightly, but still pretty breezy for the southern Queensland coast. Around the nation tomorrow, Perth's heatwave condition continues up to 39 degrees, Sydney cloudy 28. For northern Queensland, a severe weather warning remains current for that heavy rain in the northwest, then storms in the humid air mass across towards the coast. Near Cairns and Townsville, Mackay should be drier, just a possible shower. In the south, dry across the board, but watch for floodwaters moving through those southern inland rivers. Roma, 34 degrees. In the southeast, a few more sunny breaks than today, broken up with a little bit of patchy cloud, and breezy winds remain on the beaches. 22 up to 30 degrees in Brisbane and 29 for Redcliffe and the Sunshine Coast. And we're looking at more sunshine into the weekend. Katrina, I'll have the full forecast coming up at 6.
That's the best forecast you've given for a while. Thank you, Tony. Groundbreaking research is underway to save Australian wildlife from extinction. Researchers planning to store cells of up to 100 species in the country's largest frozen biobank. Ainsley Kosh spoke with the lead researcher about the project, which is the first of its kind in Australia.
World-leading research is happening right here at Museum's Victoria Research Institute to help save Australian animals on the brink of extinction. I'm joined by Professor Andrew Pask from the University of Melbourne. Andrew, just tell us a bit about the work that's happening here.
So the idea of the biobank that we've set up here is that we can actually go out into the wild, we can collect samples from our most endangered animals, we can grow cells from those animals, and then we can freeze them down in the repository here. And once we freeze them down, we have a permanent record then of that species that will go on forever. So if we lose that species from bushfire or some adverse weather event, we're able to go back to this collection and actually recreate those animals and then put them back into the wild. We're working on a number of small marsupial species that are particularly vulnerable to things like bushfires and floods. We're also working on some of the most endangered reptiles that we have here in Victoria. One of them is the Victorian earless dragon. So that was a species that we thought was extinct up until last year, and we found a very small population of those. And so we've now frozen their cells down. And we're also working on iconic Australian bird species like the brolga as well, for example.
And you've been doing a lot of work with the Tasmanian tiger as well. How does that research incorporate into what you're doing here?
So our work with the Tasmanian tiger involves us really figuring out how to take that cell and recreate a whole living animal from it. The beauty of the biobank here is that we'll actually have those cells frozen down. We won't have to re-engineer an animal that's gone extinct because we've got that living sample now actually frozen.
And so you're hoping to expand this research as well, possibly into other museums across the country?
That's correct. So at the moment we have funding to do 100 species within our collection here, but ultimately we would like to do this for every single Australian species and have a complete frozen repository of all of the biodiversity and the incredibly unique animals that we have here in Australia.
And that is Queensland's 4 p.m. news for this Wednesday. Stay with us now for The Chase and then, of course, 7 News at 6. I'm Katrina Blowers. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.